Oh, hold on, we'll get a seat. We'll get you mic'd up. All right. So yeah, Alex is going to join us shortly. Yeah, welcome. We're going to talk about what is possibly one of the most important topics lately is how do we scale Ethereum? And really kind of looking at it from a layer 2 perspective, which in my mind is kind of like Ethereum's first foray into sharding in a way, before we start getting into the various secondary ETH2 stages. So we have pretty much the who's who of layer 2s here. So I'm going to have them kind of go through. Please feel free to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're working on and what kind of differentiates you from all the other scaling solutions that are out there. So Ben, or sorry, not Ben, Ed, I'll start with you.
Hey everybody, I'm Ed Felton. I'm a co-founder and chief scientist at Offchain Labs. We make Arbitrum. Arbitrum is an optimistic rollup that we opened up to the public about 3 weeks ago. Have had a great reception so far. We have focused on compatibility. We've focused on building a community, doing a fair launch that brings everybody along, and really sweating the details to take advantage of what L2 can do. We've worked with a lot of your teams and really focused on building an ecosystem and take advantage of the scalability and so on that you can get with an optimistic rollup.
Hi, I'm Sandeep. I'm one of the co-founders at Polygon. Polygon it's hard to categorize Polygon only as layer 2 because Polygon is a Ethereum scalability aggregator. So Polygon has proof of stake chain, which is like one of the most popular scaling solutions on Ethereum currently. It has more than 1,000+ apps, and like our DAUs are probably after Ethereum, probably the DAUs are daily average users are I think second largest in the world, considering any other blockchain. And also in terms of the developer activity or the apps and all that, like everything. Polygon Polygon POS chain specifically would be only second to Ethereum. Apart from that, as I said, that Polygon is a scalability, like Ethereum scalability aggregator. So it has layer 2, like for example, recently Hermes, which has the first decentralized zkRollup, which currently only supports payment, by the way. It joined Polygon umbrella. Apart from that, we have Polygon Data Avail, which is a generic data availability chain for rollups to have like a bit of, not rollups, but maybe validums to have some less cost data availability guarantees. And similarly, we have Polygon SDK, with which you can have fully sovereign side chains, which can directly interact with Ethereum as the central hub, like kind of like what you have with, let's say, Cosmos. And in future, like maybe 2-3 years down the line, we might also think of having shared security, side chains, which again connect back to Ethereum. So our kind of perspective about Ethereum scaling is pretty broad in that sense, that like Ethereum, like the way Cosmos gets scalability benefits or kind of value accrual benefits from sovereign chains. So Ethereum can also benefit from both shared security chains as well as like standalone chains and secured chains from Ethereum.
All right, I guess that's me. Hello, everyone. I'm Ben from Optimism, co-founder there, and in my spare time I make Ethereum parody songs, so go follow me. So the way we think about scaling at Optimism is basically bringing Ethereum into layer 2. So we've had a rollup on Mainnet for the better part of the year that was trying to accomplish this, and we just are about to make a big upgrade, which brings us from EVM compatibility to EVM equivalence. So everything that we do is thinking about what is the minimal lines of code that we can write to bring the Ethereum stack into layer 2. It's not about creating a new layer 2 system. It's about expanding the Ethereum ecosystem into a multi-chain shared security universe. So that's kind of what we think, how we think about things. Go try us out, gateway.optimism.io. Go have some fun.
Alex.
You, Alex.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Glukovsky. I'm co-founder and CEO of Meta Labs, and we're building ZK Sync, which is a ZK rollup for Ethereum. It's a layer 2 based on a very advanced cryptography, which replaces the trust in operators, replaces the game theoretical security mechanisms with pure math. And we are live on Mainnet for over a year now with payments. Many of you have maybe experienced zk Sync when doing Gitcoin grants. All the latest Gitcoin grant round campaigns were done on zk Sync, and we have many other protocols being powered for payments with zk Sync. But we are now most excited about the upcoming release of zk Sync version 2, which will bring EVM compatibility to zkRollups and will allow us to scale essentially like everything that works on Ethereum with the highest degree of security and with very, very low costs at the same time. So like, completely breaking out of the scalability trilemma. Yeah.
All right, Eli, we'll kick it over to you.
Hi there. I'm seeing this.
Eli, did you go on mute?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
got you now.
Can you hear me? Hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I just said briefly that I'm really, really sorry that I'm not attending in person. You know, COVID craziness. That I hope to be next year. So a bit about myself. I'm co-founder and president at Starkware. I've been trying to promote the ideas of using scalability and privacy for blockchains via zk starts and other technologies ever since 2013. I'm also previously I'm a founding scientist of Zcash, which focuses on privacy. Starkware is now roughly 4 years old. We've invented a whole bunch of a really deep technology stack that we're also very happy that others are using. It includes, of course, zk Stark and other protocols in it, like Fry, data availability models like Withiam and Volition, and most recently a programming language that is the first one for zkRollup to be functioning, in production and serving all of our customers. We have 4 of them by now. That programming language is called Cairo. Really, tremendously excited to see the amount of activity on our different customers. Sorare just yesterday announced a fund of running of $680 million, which I think is worthy of a round of applause. And they will be servicing fantasy soccer with, Juventus and Liverpool and La Liga. I know I'm speaking to people in the US, but even you guys know that football really is, something else, and it's really important. Super excited to see DYDX being basically the #1 DEX in terms of volume, surpassing Uniswap, I think over the past 2 days with $2 billion of volume per day. That's really exciting. And in roughly 2 months' time, by the end of November, maybe even a bit earlier, we'll be launching the alpha mainnet for Starknet, which will allow the same kind of scale that our customers are now using, DYDX, Sorare, Immutable, and Diversify, to be basically at the hands of all developers. The alpha on testnet is already live, and there's an ever-growing, I'd like to say exponentially growing, number of developers that are joining the Discord and starting to write code for it, NFTs and games and whatnot. And in 2 months' time, we'll basically be live in alpha on Mainnet, and that's the most exciting thing I want to share with you.
Excellent. All right, thank you for the intros. So now we get to the fun part. This session's a little bit different from the other ones. It's an AMA, so we sourced a bunch of questions online. We're going to kind of go through these over the next 20 minutes. We also have a mic down over there by the screen, which Ryan alluded to earlier. So for the last 10 minutes, if anyone wants to stand up, has a question for anyone up here, feel free to step down there and go ahead and ask it. But I'm going to go ahead and kick this off with some of the first questions that we had. So all the platforms really are general application platforms. Anyone can launch anything. But kind of curious, do you see yourself targeting any specific communities or application verticals at all? And Ben, I'll kick it over to you to start it off.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know if I would say application verticals. I think that the thing that we really emphasize at Optimism is the Ethereum development ecosystem. And when I say that, I don't just mean the apps on top. I mean the infrastructure being built out on the bottom. So the most important thing for us is that over the past 6 years, this incredible base of Ethereum that we've had created and built and battle tested and improved again and again and again, that should be what we're building on L2. So I think that the applications that will come are going to be based on what people like to run on Ethereum. And there's a lot of answers to that, and there's different verticals. We'll probably see different chains with different groups of apps in those different places. But for us, what we focus on is Ethereum. We see ourselves as providing the core infrastructure, and that's about providing the Ethereum that you know and love, but cheaper, better, faster.
Yeah, Sandeep, I see you nodding, and I'm kind of curious, like, same question over to you. Now that you have a bunch of apps being built on there, do you see any specific ones kind of taking off, or which ones might you gravitate towards?
Yeah, so I mean, like there are two ways of looking at it from Polygon's perspective, right? So one is that, as I said, that Polygon is not like one type of solution. It provides various different kinds of solutions. So, depending upon which particular solution we are talking about, like our kind of target audience becomes slightly different. For example, like with Polygon POS chain, primarily this is like Polygon POS chain is very popular amongst the game developers because they need very low cost NFTs, like where they can mint NFT at like probably a 1/10 of a cent, right? And although a large part of DeFi ecosystem is also like is using Polygon today, but then primarily our target audience for this POS chain has been traditionally like the NFT kind of projects. Then Polygon SDK, which provides you kind of sovereign chains. For that, like we are talking to a lot of Web 2 teams which have, let's say, 10, 20, 30, even 100 million users, and they want to interact and play with the some of these, want to interact and play with blockchains. Similarly, Polygon Hermes, it's only a payment-based solution, so we have a separate team which is now focusing on payments. And Polygon Studios, like everyone would know, like Polygon Studios specifically focuses on NFTs and kind of this thing. So how we are seeing Polygon is like a like scalability front for Ethereum, which has kind of these separate parts of this conglomerate which kind of pursue their own kind of focus areas and overall bringing adoption to Ethereum. That's how we see it.
Ed,
Sure.
So now that you've launched, you see protocols popping up. You can see a lot of DeFi protocols definitely launching on Arbitrum 1, but kind of dive into that, but also that you have all these kind of other separate opportunities as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really focused on this fair launch concept, that we're not going to pick winners in a particular sector. We're not going to pick one sector as being the one that we foster to the exclusion of others. We want to let the community and the market decide where the effort and the liquidity is going to go. And that's been super successful. We've had a ton of value come on board. In the first 3 weeks since launch, about $2.3 billion of value have moved onto the chain, more than 5,000 contracts and more than 100,000 unique user addresses. So really broad growth. And we really focus on the virtuous cycle, where lots of developers doing lots of things helps us better understand how we can provide support for a broad set of applications, and that in turn brings more developers in. And because in this sector there's such a focus on composability and the ability to put things together to make higher level services, there's really a strong benefit from having so many entities coming on board. And so you see more and more jumping on board. We had MakerDAO and 1inch just this morning have announced that they've launched, and you're going to see more major announcements coming. So we have really focused on going broad, trying to not pick, trying to provide the kind of support that would let the developer community do what they do best.
So Alex, same question. The way you're seeing it on not only on ZK Sync, but ZK Porter, if there's going to be some differences between the two there.
Sure, this is a great question. So with ZK Sync, we also don't focus on any specific use cases. It will be possible to do whatever you can do on Ethereum with just plug and play your contracts and deploy them in one click on ZK Sync. So whatever works there, NFTs, DeFi, all the interesting new use cases will be supported. And we're not going to pick winners there as well. But I think one area where we really focus on is the users. So like we have a specific focus on the user group, which I would call sovereign individuals. So like we're not building for corporations, we're not building for companies, for like these corporate users. We want people to have control over their financial assets, their virtual assets in general. So it's very important to us that we don't build solutions that will push them towards the hands of centralized operators that can, manipulate, introduce some additional rules, KYC, like some exclusion practices. We want everyone to have access to this platform in a fair and permissive way, and this is why it's been very important to us to extend the idea of volition with with an economic decentralization component, which we called zk Porter. So in zk Sync, you will have two different account types, which you as a user can choose. One is zkRollup, which gives you the full security of Ethereum, and the costs are going to be correspondingly slightly higher. And the second one is going to be called zk Porter, where you rely on the consensus of stakeholders for providing data availability, while the validity of all transactions is still guaranteed by Ethereum and the method of zero-knowledge proofs. But even with zk Porter, you don't rely on any central party. It's like the economic properties are very interesting, and it's it's really hard to trick it. So like you would need to attack the system completely and spend a lot of money to destroy it, which doesn't make much sense. So so this is our focus on the end users as individuals.
Giving them that option either way, yeah. So Eli, over to you. You're going on, with the Starkware chain that working on, but also then you've had multiple other applications actually launch their own version based off of Starkware technology.
Yeah, so for the disclaimer, making predictions is very hard, especially concerning the future. And certainly, I've been in this space again since 2013. There's a large number of things I didn't see coming, DeFi, NFTs, whatnot. So, okay, I do think Starknet is going to be really, really good for more complex gaming. Right now, a lot of the gaming is sort of focused on minimal gameplay and a lot of NFTs, so it's more collectibles. I think we'll see an expansion of gaming because sort of the limit on computation has been reduced. I think another thing we'll see is that more enterprises were interested in using blockchain infrastructure, but really can't. They're limited by scale. So since we have, I believe, the most scalable platform, and it's already servicing very large TPS in production, I think we'll also try to cater to those. And the last thing I want to say is that what we want to put an emphasis on is making sure that the ecosystem is very heavily leaning towards the important dApp developers and core developers, and finding ways to ensure that it's not about us at Starkware doling out or setting the rules so that who gets what, but rather on a very basic protocol level, these things will play out. That's very important for the success of Starknet. Just summarizing, gaming is going to be a big thing in Starknet. Enterprises that need scale, and we're going to try to find mechanisms so that core contributors, both on the dApp level and the infrastructure level, that are outside of Starkware, are incentivized to participate in the work.
Yeah, I will say, the idea of organic growth makes sense, and it's definitely it's the hardest maybe to get off the ground, but like once it actually catches steam and creates that kind of almost like avalanche type effect, it can definitely take over from there. So jumping to the next one, everyone here is building off of Ethereum, I think they're very Ethereum-centric views. But I'm kind of curious, do you kind of see this being a multi-chain world in the future, and how do you see that evolving? And then two, kind of follow up, do you see any other layer ones out there building some interesting technology? What do you think is interesting out there? Alex, I'll start with you.
Okay, I'll start with the last question first.
Yep.
Of other L1s, I think it's great to see a lot of innovation, but in my opinion, L1s will compete mostly on the metric of decentralization. And the ones, like if you want to be an Ethereum killer, it should be more decentralized than Ethereum. Because with less decentralization, you kind of kill the purpose of blockchain in general. So like you just devolve into something like a bank with more robust properties and with cryptography. So the only blockchain which I see going in this direction is Mainnet protocol, building the fully verifiable succinct blockchain where you're using zk snarks. And others do a lot of interesting technological experiments, which we'll see how they play out. But I'm most excited about Mainnet. And back to the first question. Sorry, remind the first. How
do you see is this going to be a multi-chain world?
Yeah. Yes. That's a really good one. So I think we will see something like a multi-chain world on Ethereum, but in a way where all these chains share the security of the main chain, and it's probably gonna be some like interesting power law dynamics. So some of them are gonna be more used than the others. But eventually, I'm a bit biased, but again, I think that eventually everyone will have to embrace zero-knowledge proofs and make it completely trustless, and then we can have a very seamless communication between these different chains. So you will be able to like do things like making transfers from one to another without using without publishing any data on the high level in Ethereum, which will make the transactions between the chains very low cost. Like they will essentially be equivalent of transactions on chains. And the reason I think we will see different chains is because the consensus mechanism have fundamental limitations. You probably cannot have a decentralized consensus with hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. This is probably unrealistic, right? So like, at least for this purpose, we will need to build these hierarchies of chains to reach the world adoption of billions of people making daily operations on blockchain.
Excellent. Eli, same question or questions?
Yeah, so it's a terrific question. I want to say, I know the popular thing to say is that we are all in on Ethereum. My view is a little bit different. It is that we have a technology that is broader than all of blockchain. I believe, and I've been saying this for a while, that zk starks are going to permeate into the standard world, whether through CBDCs or just into mainstream. And by the same token, definitely we will deploy this technology in various forms over any blockchain that has sufficient needs for scale or privacy and would like to work with us. So it's not for us to decide where the market innovation is going to come from. Right now, the biggest need and the place we're focusing on first is, of course, Ethereum. And it may well be that everything will just be, L2s on Ethereum. That's fine with us. But I can certainly see a situation where that's not the case. And we will try to work with anyone who wants to use this technology, which again is even broader than just a blockchain use case. And to your question about other L1s or L2s that I'm an admirer of. So first of all the people on stage are doing tremendous innovation. Really, it's not just on the theory level, but like getting things done is such a big accomplishment, and we're of course following them with envy and pride and stuff there. On the L1s. I'm personally very interested to see how Chia plays out because it's a very, very intriguing, monetary proof of work model, and it comes from a very strong research team. But and I must confess, this is of course not investment advice, and not really. Just I think it's a very interesting, very different project. So, anyways.
Excellent. Yeah, Ed.
Sure. I think Ethereum will continue to be the base layer for coordination and as a root of security for many of these systems. But I also think you will see multiple chains on top of it or coordinating via Ethereum. There's a tension between the desire to have everything together on one chain in order to get the best composability versus the desire to have greater scale through a kind of sharding across multiple chains, and also the desire to have different chains that are specialized for the needs of different communities or different applications. And I think that tension will play out. You're not going to have a million chains, but I think you'll have multiple ones, and it'll be driven by that trade-off. But I do think you end up with Ethereum as the basis on which other things build. So most users on most days won't interact directly with Ethereum, but the things they use will be better because Ethereum's there as a foundation layer.
Excellent. Well, before I go to Sandeep, if anyone wants to start walking up, if they have any questions, go ahead, and if you want to start a line down underneath the screen over here. So Sandeep, same question. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Ed summarized it very beautifully that, our thesis is that future is definitely multi-chain, but multi-chain on Ethereum, right? Partly the reason is that, and this is my personal view, that, I feel that layer one is kind of a last man standing game. Like, forget about people who are, or the chains which are competing with Ethereum. I feel even Bitcoin and Ethereum eventually, one chain will emerge as the fundamental chain, and we feel that definitely that would be Ethereum, because at the layer one you are, as Alex was also pointing out, that you are playing for 2-3 key things. One is the level of decentralization. The second is that the native asset on that chain kind of starts adopting a hard money kind of characteristics, and then which then enforces a lot of crypto economic securities. So coming back to what Ed was saying, that we fully believe that future is multi-chain, with all of these chains connecting back into Ethereum, and then Ethereum acting as the settlement layer or security provisioning layer and all that. And then between these multiple chains, we will see various different kinds of business activities using different kinds of chains. So, for example, as Eli was saying, that enterprises want different kinds of solutions, different levels of controls, and startups, pure Web3 startups need different levels of control, and Web2 startups need different level of controls. So various different kinds of, and that's the thesis of Polygon, that various different kinds of chains connecting back into Ethereum, where Ethereum is the settlement and security layer. And yes, this is going to be a multi-chain world on top of Ethereum.
And do you see any other interesting technologies being built outside of Ethereum that have caught your eye that you might be an admirer of?
I mean, definitely there are interesting experiments, as other panelists also said. But then, in terms of having this global, kind of, money transacting layer or value transacting layer, I think it's a layer one is a last man standing game, and Ethereum is going to emerge at the end.
Excellent, thanks. Ben, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, as the last one, I could just rehash exactly what everyone said the whole time. I definitely agree with what everyone said. I think, yeah, if there's any unique perspective to add, I thought it was interesting how you prefaced the original question, which was, you said, I know you guys are all building on Ethereum, but will it be multi-chain? Mm-hmm. And I think it's definitely the case that those two things are not at all mutually exclusive, and we've heard a lot about that. But another point to make is that there's two ways to think about Ethereum when you say that, right? One thing is this actual Ethereum ETH chain, the one that the ETH currency is on, and the one that everyone is going to use as the settlement layer, as everyone else here has said. I think the other side of the coin is that ETH is also a stack, right? There's also a technology stack. And I think that is another interesting question. I believe very strongly, as does everyone at Optimism, that the Ethereum stack itself is going to be what is running many, many, many of these chains. Maybe, yes, we'll see some application-specific chains for certain use cases, but for doing the things that Ethereum has done right now, it's going to be that Ethereum stack. And so that's why we spend a lot of time figuring out how to bring that stack into L2, because there's multiple chains, but they should all be running that stack.
Yeah, when I talk about application-specific chains, I even look at layer 2s in that in a lot of ways. Like anyone, like some of the different solutions that are built off of existing like Starkware technology, like you can build application-specific chains using layer 2s that plug back into Ethereum. So yeah, I agree with that, looking at the entire stack from that perspective.
We also may not even think of these things as like layer 2s when this all comes to, this world that we're talking about comes to reality, right? I think it'll just be like the chains, and you'll be using it, and your applications will give you a clean way to move money around, and it'll just be all abstracted away from users. Hopefully they can make very informed, good, security trade-off decisions. But I don't think it'll be what we see now, which is like, oh, go on to layer 2, right? It's like, I'm tweeting on the internet. No, you're just tweeting. That's the app.
So one of the other questions I have here is, so in a lot of, and I totally get it, like the progressive decentralization process of launching in kind of like a guarded form and slowly opening up the process, whether it be decentralizing the sequencer process on optimistic rollups or like the POS bridge for Polygon. Sandeep, I'll start with you. What is the process for managing the POS bridge now, and like and is there a plan to decentralize that over time?
Yeah. So I mean, apart from what is out there on Twitter and all that, like discussions keep happening over there. But Polygon Bridge, for example, how it works is that it requires a consensus of all the 100 validators that are operating the Polygon POS chain. And like I don't think that there is any other bridge currently which is as decentralized as this bridge. Now there are like upgradability rights on multi-sigs on the main chain contracts, which I think would be true for any early stage project, because you need to upgrade this technology, and then then if you can find, God forbid, some bug, like you should have some reactive kind of powers, especially in the initial times, and then eventually we have a path to decentralization where even this, and I think we are already reaching with Polygon like $50 billion moving to and fro through the bridge, and fully safely and everything. We are already reaching a place where this either complete give up of these upgradation rights can happen, or there can be a time lock and that kind of intermediate things, and eventually within like 1 year, 1.5 years, you can completely let go of everything. And I think all the layer 2s are eventually like going to follow the same path probably.
Excellent. Ben, so kind of like same question, like not only like the contracts itself, but then the sequencer process. Is that something that you'd like to decentralize long term, and is there like a plan of how that could happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a really cool thing that we're seeing, is like this progressive decentralization move. That has been something that's been very, very, very valuable to us. When we sort of introduced sequencing a couple of years ago, we had this idea. We knew that we could do these instant confirmed transactions, but no one had ever experienced this before, and no one knew exactly what was going to go on. So one of the things that we did was we just launched with a single application and figured out how to do that right and do that well. And that was extremely valuable. Now that it becomes time to decentralize the sequencer, yes, of course we want to do that. And I think the most interesting thing that we're going to see coming out of that is the evolution of miner extractable value. And L2 MEV is like a very new, hot thing that's about to abound and explode. And there's definitely, I think, open questions that no one has the answer to yet that we need to figure out how to solve. How do you define the sequencing rules that are beneficial to everyone and that people are going to want to use? So we'll definitely do that. We put out a post when we introduced sequencing. That was our first stab at that. But we have some exciting more stuff coming.
Great. Ed, pass it over. Same question, but I know you have some different views on MEV from that standpoint.
I do. I mean, let me first give the big picture, right? Progressive decentralization is the thing to do. It's what we are doing. We think it's the responsible way to launch. That is, you design the tech to be inherently decentralized from day one, But then early on, you need to have some sort of controls, like upgrade controls, and then you progressively take those off. And so that's what we're doing. We've put the beta moniker on our launched product, and we will keep the beta moniker on until we have reached full decentralization. And we'll be communicating clearly with the community about where we are and how that's going to work. As far as sequencing and MEV, or minor extractable value, what we're really talking about here is front running. And I believe strongly front running is bad for users, and it's something that we should try to design our systems to resist. Even if we can't completely eliminate it, I think it's a major design goal, and we have to be looking at it that way as opposed to some opportunity for somebody. Because it is an opportunity for somebody to take money from our users. All right. So what does that mean? That means decentralizing sequencing. And that is an area where we've been doing some innovation. My co-founder, Stephen Goldfeder, is co-author of sort of the leading research paper in this area so far. There's more going on. But we're going to a committee-based sequencing scheme where you have a firm and precise security promise you can make about fairness at the protocol level is the direction I think this should go, and that's where we're going to be going over time with sequencing.
I think we can dive a lot more into that here, but I definitely want to get Alex. Any similar kind of hurdles around progressive decentralization that zkSync or Meta Labs are looking at?
Absolutely, yes. So we're also going to decentralize the sequencer. We believe this is the only way to go. You cannot keep systems centralized with a central point of failure, a central point of control. And I fully agree with Ed that it's the only responsible way to keep the label beta as long as you haven't achieved that fully to the full degree, removing all the admin keys. This is really important. And I also agree with him on the MEV question, that MEV is essentially a value extraction from your users, which you want to minimize. But I think that technologically, we have one more challenge with decentralization of the sequencer. With all the scaling solutions which we provide, the requirements on the node operators of sequencer nodes are, just from resources perspective, much higher. Because we want to achieve much higher load than Ethereum. Ethereum handles 20 transactions per second, and it can run on any consumer hardware, but we are aiming at thousands, 1 to 10,000 transactions per second. So the nodes will be running in some data centers with very powerful machines, a lot of CPUs, a lot of memory, which not everyone can run. So there will be a natural tendency for even for decentralized sequencers to be more centralized. There will be fewer validators who are running the node. And it puts us in a position to be even more protective against any kind of manipulation and censorship that can happen in layer 2. Because if those systems are really big and popular and everyone wants to be there, and the validators have power to exclude certain users, it would be catastrophic. It would take us back from the direction we want to go. So that's why we believe that there are technologies there, such as time-locked encryption, VDFs, which can be used to prevent MEV, but also to prevent censorship altogether. So if the validators do not know what the transactions contain, they cannot filter you. They cannot say, oh, we don't accept transactions from you, because they just have no clue. They see encrypted black boxes going on until they include them in the block, and then they have to decrypt the block. So this is how we feel about that, and we're definitely also going to keep the beta marker on until this is fully solved.
I just wanted to add one more part, because I missed the sequencer being decentralized on I just wanted to mention about Polygon thing. So for example, the Hermes rollup that we have, that already is, I think it's the first decentralized zkRollup, and then it can be run in a, it is being run in a multi-validator setup. Polygon POS chain, for example, already has 100 plus public validators. Anybody can become a validator over there. And then all the other, as Ed was saying, that the concept should be that, or the idea should be, it should be built with decentralization in mind. Of course, you can have these controls at the start, and then eventually you'll potentially decentralize it eventually, but you build it with the full decentralization as mindset. Even with the Ernst & Young Nightfall zkRollup that we are going to launch, that will also be a decentralized rollup in terms of the operators also.
Excellent. I know we're running out of time, but I want to give Eli the last word here. Same question. You kind of give us like a minute spiel on what you're working on.
What, for decentralization?
Yeah,
Just
for
in general?
decentralization. What's kind of like the process going forward, where you're at, and like what's kind of coming down the line on that end?
Yeah, I'll speak very briefly. So the first thing we're decentralizing right now is just the development. So we have 2 teams outside of Stark. We're building full nodes, Equilibrium and Aragon, TurboGeth. We have multiple independent outside processes for building locked explorers and compilers, for instance, from Solidity by Nevermind. So that's the first thing we're decentralizing. Later on we'll get to decentralizing, but I don't want to waste time. I don't have anything deep on this matter to add to what my colleague said. We're of course very gung-ho and using Vidu as a way to do fair sequencing in a variety of ways. I spoke about it, but that's a different topic. It's not in our plans right now. Maybe we'll get to it later. So, out of respect for time, that's all I'll say.
I appreciate everyone joining us here. Thanks for taking the time. And if anyone has any other questions, I'm sure you can track them down outside. All right.
Thanks, guys.